Have you ever started a week feeling like you were already behind? Like Monday hit you in the face before you even got a chance to breathe. Maybe you rolled out of bed, glanced at your phone, and suddenly the day had already begun without you. Texts, emails, meetings, deadlines. The pace doesn't ask for your permission, it just starts running. And unless we choose to step in with intention, we don't run the week, the wheel runs us. But here's the thing, this isn't just about being busy, it's about being aimless. And being aimless isn't relaxing, it's exhausting. People think freedom means the absence of structure. But that's not true. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want whenever you want. That's chaos. Real freedom is having the clarity to know where you're going so you can use your energy wisely. Clarity is not the enemy of freedom. I think it is the birthplace of it. Planning your week isn't about squeezing every ounce of productivity out of your time. It's about reclaiming your time. It's about creating clarity, not just in your calendar, but in your mind. I want to take you back to a conversation I had with a friend not long ago. She's a brilliant designer, creative, full of ideas, and deeply driven. But she was on the edge of burnout. Not because she wasn't doing meaningful work, she was, but every week felt like a whirlwind. Her projects kept piling up. Her inbox was a storm. She had goals, but no grip on when or how she'd get to them. She told me, I feel like I'm running, but I don't know if I'm running towards something or away from it. What she lacked wasn't discipline. It wasn't motivation. It was clarity, that invisible thread that ties each day to something bigger. Without that thread, she was doing 100 things a day, but walking away feeling like nothing was actually finished. Maybe you felt that too. So we sat down together one Sunday afternoon, no distractions, just a notepad and some coffee. I asked her one question. What do you want to feel by Friday? Not what she wanted to achieve, but what she wanted to feel. It caught her off guard. Relieved, she said, and proud. From there, we worked backward. What would need to happen, realistically, for her to feel proud and relieved at the end of the week? Not in a fantasy world where she had 48 hours a day, but in the real world with the same limitations everyone else has. We didn't create a to-do list. We created clarity. And here's what we discovered. Her stress didn't come from how much she had to do. It came from not knowing what mattered most. She was saying yes to everything because she hadn't taken the time to define the few things that actually moved the needle. When she planned her week with intention, something changed. The week didn't get lighter, but she got stronger. The fog lifted. She walked into Monday not bracing for impact, but leading with purpose. That's the power of clarity. Let's get honest. Most of us don't plan our weeks because we believe we don't have time. Or maybe we think we're just not the planning type. But the irony is this. Not planning doesn't save time, it wastes it. It causes us to circle our priorities like a plane that can't find the runway. We react, we improvise, we put out fires, but we rarely build anything that lasts. Clarity isn't rigid. It's not about micromanaging your life. It's about giving yourself a roadmap so you don't have to keep second-guessing every turn. You still have room for spontaneity, for joy, for rest. But you also have a direction, and direction gives peace. A planned week doesn't mean everything goes perfectly. Life still surprises us. Meetings move, kids get sick, emergencies happen. But when we plan with clarity, we create anchors. Moments and intentions we can return to even when the waves crash in. Without that, we drift. With it, we steer. Think about a symphony. It might seem spontaneous when you hear it live, but behind every note is hours of preparation, structure, and design. The conductor isn't guessing what comes next. They've rehearsed. They know the direction. That's what makes the music flow. Now, weeks can be like that. Fluid, alive, full of movement, but still grounded in structure. When we plan, we take ownership. And ownership is empowering. It reminds us that we are not just passengers in our own lives, we are pilots. And every pilot needs a flight plan. One of the most underrated forms of self-respect is simply sitting down with yourself for 20 minutes at the start of the week and asking, what do I want to create? Who do I want to show up as? What must get done? Not everything. Just the essential things. It's not selfish. It's leadership. The most fulfilled people I know don't necessarily have the most open calendars, but they have the most aligned ones. They plan not to control their time, but to honor it. That's the invitation. Not to become someone who has every second scheduled, but someone who has enough clarity to move through the week with purpose, not panic. Clarity isn't just a productivity tool. It's a mindset, a posture, a commitment to live with your eyes open. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to start with why you're planning in the first place. Not to do more, but to be more of who you are meant to be. So don't wait for the chaos to slow down. It won't. Instead, pause, breathe. Open your calendar. Ask yourself what would make this week meaningful. Then build it one block, one intention, one clear step at a time. Because clarity isn't a luxury. It's a choice, and it's one you get to make every single week. Most of us are used to thinking of discipline as punishment. It's what we get when we've done something wrong. It's that cold word teachers use, or the voice of an old coach pushing us to try harder. For many, it doesn't inspire, it intimidates. But discipline isn't about being harsh or rigid. At its best, discipline is a gift, a structure, a promise we keep to ourselves. Because that's really what it is. Discipline is self-trust in action. We often talk about trusting other people. We want to trust our teams, our partners, our leaders. We want people to do what they say they're going to do. But what happens when we turn that lens inward? Can we trust ourselves? Think about it. How many times have we told ourselves we would do something and then didn't follow through? Maybe we said, this week, I'm going to get back on track. Or tomorrow, I'll finally start. Or this time will be different. But then life got in the way, or we got tired, or we simply didn't feel like it. And without even realizing it, we broke a small promise to ourselves. Now, nobody notices those little breaks at first. The world keeps turning. Our friends don't call us out. No boss gives us a warning, but we notice. Deep down, we feel it. And with every missed commitment, our self-trust erodes just a little more. The good news is this. The process works both ways. Every time we follow through, even in the smallest way, we make a deposit in that trust bank. We remind ourselves that we are reliable, that our word matters, that our actions match our intentions. And that's what weekly planning is really about. It's not just scheduling. It's not about crossing things off a list. It's about showing up for yourself consistently until you start to believe again that your own word is something you can count on. I once worked with someone who was brilliant at inspiring others, but constantly frustrated with himself. He was creative, full of ideas, but his days felt scattered. He told me he always had grand plans on Sunday nights, but by Tuesday he was already off track. Meetings popped up, his energy dipped, and the cycle continued. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't disorganized. What he lacked was rhythm. A steady beat he could count on, a set of decisions made in advance so that every day didn't feel like a brand new negotiation with himself. We talked about creating a very simple weekly planning ritual. Not something overwhelming, just 30 minutes on Sunday night where he would look at the week ahead and ask two questions. What do I need to get done? And when am I going to do it? But there was one more rule. He had to keep the promises he made during that session. Not all of them, not perfectly, but at least 80%. That was the goal. And if something fell off, because life happens, he wasn't allowed to judge himself. He was just required to reschedule it. Not delete it, not forget it, just move it intentionally. Within a month, something shifted. He started speaking differently. There was a calm confidence in his voice. He didn't sound like someone scrambling to stay afloat. He sounded like someone who had taken the wheel. Why? Because he'd rebuilt trust with himself, not through massive breakthroughs, but through simple, consistent discipline. This is the part most people get wrong about discipline. They think it's about effort, willpower, grit. But the truth is, discipline is about design. When you plan your week in advance, you're designing conditions where follow-through becomes more likely. You're reducing the number of decisions you need to make in the moment. You're saying, I've already made the hard choice once. I don't need to make it again. Without that design, everything becomes reactive. We wait for motivation to show up. We let urgency set the agenda. And when we fall short, we beat ourselves up for not being disciplined enough. But motivation is a mood. Discipline is a decision. It's not about feeling like doing the thing. It's about doing the thing because it aligns with who you want to become. There's something powerful that happens when you start planning your week and you actually stick to the plan. You stop chasing confidence, you start earning it. You stop hoping for momentum, you start building it. Not because the week went perfectly, but because you kept the promise to begin. Even more powerful, other people start to notice. Your team sees that when you say you'll do something, it happens. Your family notices that your attention isn't scattered, you're present. The trust you build with yourself spills over into every relationship you touch. And soon, you're not just someone who's planning their week. You're someone who leads by example. Discipline at its core is not a punishment, it's an agreement. You and your future self shaking hands in advance, saying, I've got you. Planning your week is the moment that handshake happens. It's where intention meets action. And like all forms of trust, it doesn't build instantly. It builds brick by brick, 1 week at a time. Some weeks will go sideways. Some plans will fall apart. That's okay. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is to return to the rhythm, because each time you do, you strengthen the foundation. If you've ever felt like you can't quite rely on yourself, like your follow-through doesn't match your ambition, know this: you're not broken. You're just missing the structure that lets you show up fully. Discipline can feel hard in the moment, but the lack of it is harder in the long run because it erodes the most important relationship you have, the one with yourself. So don't make this complicated. Choose one moment each week to sit down, decide what matters, put it on the calendar, and then treat that time like it matters, because it does. Not for the sake of being productive, but for the sake of becoming someone whose actions align with their words. You don't need to wait until life slows down to get this right. Start this week. Start small. Start with one promise. Then keep it. Because discipline isn't a burden, it's a bridge between who you are now and who you're capable of becoming. Every day we are surrounded by noise. Emails flood in, notifications buzz, messages pop up, meetings stack one after another. And every one of these things carries a sense of urgency. They tell us they need us now, they push to the front of the line, they demand our attention, they scream. But importance, real importance, is quiet. It doesn't interrupt. It waits patiently, silently. And unless we are intentional, we can go days, weeks, even years answering every loud thing while the quiet things, the ones that matter most, go unheard. This is the trap most people fall into, not because they're lazy, not because they don't care, but because they're human. We are wired to respond to urgency. There's adrenaline in it. There's clarity in a crisis. There's an addictive sense of momentum when we're checking off tasks, responding to messages, rushing from one thing to the next. It feels productive. It feels like progress. But is it really? Have you ever had a day where you were busy from sunrise to sunset, moving, reacting, answering, doing, and yet when your head finally hit the pillow, you felt like nothing truly meaningful happened? Like you ran all day but didn't move forward. That's what happens when we let urgency run the show. We spend our energy on what's screaming, not on what's speaking softly. And that's why planning your week matters. Because if you don't take time in advance to define what's important, urgency will decide for you. And it will always choose itself. Let me tell you about a leader I worked with a few years ago. He was sharp, respected, and always busy. On paper, his calendar was full of meetings, strategy sessions, and back-to-back calls. But he confided in me that he felt empty. Not burnt out exactly, just disconnected. He said, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but I'm not sure I'm doing what I'm meant to do. So he took a closer look at his week. Every hour was accounted for. But nowhere on his calendar was time for reflection, for learning, for creative thinking. Nowhere was space for mentoring his team, which he said was his favorite part of leadership. Nowhere was time carved out for planning the long-term future of the organization, something he claimed was a top priority. Those things weren't missing because they weren't important. They were missing because they were quiet. So we made a shift. Instead of letting the week fill itself, he started filling it with intention. We blocked an hour every morning for thinking time. We reserved Fridays for mentorship and team development. And we protected one afternoon a week for strategic planning. No emails, no meetings, just focus. At first it felt uncomfortable, like he was ignoring the real work, but slowly things started to change. His energy came back. His sense of direction sharpened. He wasn't just busy, he was fulfilled because he had remembered what truly mattered. The truth is, most people don't make time for important work because important work rarely feels urgent in the moment. There's no alarm that goes off reminding you to invest in your relationships, no notification that tells you to reflect on your purpose, no calendar invite that says, today spend an hour thinking deeply about where you're headed. Urgency is external. Importance is internal. And it takes silence and space to hear it. That's why weekly planning isn't a mechanical exercise. It's a moment of honesty, the time to ask, what actually matters this week? Not what's on fire, not what others are demanding, but what's quietly waiting. What's easy to ignore but costly to neglect? It might be preparing for a conversation you've been putting off, or reading a book that will sharpen your thinking, or reconnecting with someone who slipped through the cracks, or simply setting boundaries so you can show up fully at work, at home, with yourself. These things won't chase you. They won't hound you. They'll just wait. And over time, the cost of ignoring them will grow. Not all at once, but slowly, silently, until one day you wake up and realize the loudest things in your life have been driving your decisions, and the meaningful things have been left behind. But it doesn't have to be that way. Every week is a new opportunity to choose differently, to listen carefully, to ask, what's calling me? Not loudly, but deeply. When you plan your week with this kind of awareness, you give importance a seat at the table. You protect it from being crowded out by the noise. You say, I see you. I hear you. You matter. It might mean saying no to some urgent requests. It might mean disappointing a few people. But the trade-off is this. You start living a life that's led by values, not by volume. The most successful and fulfilled people aren't the ones who respond the fastest. They're the ones who respond the wisest. They aren't the busiest. They're the most aligned. They make space for what's quiet. They plan their weeks not just around what they have to do, but around who they want to become. And so I invite you, before the noise of the week begins, to stop, to pause, to listen. What's been whispering to you? What have you been postponing? Not because it doesn't matter, but because it doesn't shout. Write those things down. Protect time for them. Build them into your plan. Not someday, but this week. Because the truth is, urgency will always find you. But importance, you have to go looking for it. And when you do, when you stop letting urgency dictate your direction and start choosing importance instead, you don't just manage your time better. You live better, you lead better, you connect deeper, you begin to walk through your week not reacting but responding with clarity, with presence, with purpose. Because the loud things will always demand your attention, but it's the quiet things that define your life. There's something almost sacred about Sunday evening, the weekend